Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Dave's Bullshit. And today it should have a working mic. Oh, that might be really loud. Probably shouldn't do that. Hopefully the mic's working this time. I think it should be. I checked my input settings, so should be good to go. So today we're talking about relationships. So we're talking about... this is going to be super OP related. There'll be some OP language in there for the most part. I guess the end is going to be OP related with the OPs. Anyway. So the first section, we'll talk about how to find the right person, kind of what things to look for. Second section, we'll talk about once you found somebody, how to build the relationship from there. And then the third section, we'll talk about the OP relationship math stuff, and if that applies, how valid is it? Do you need to be compatible types for it to work out? And that sort of thing. So this was inspired by ReggieCast. So my friend Reggie, I'll put his channel in the link below. So yeah, this one is basically how to get booed up. That is the topic for today. So yeah, okay. I don't know how to end this section without it being awkward, but I'm just getting into it now. Okay, so first section, we're going to talk about how to find the right person. Which is probably the hardest step, right? Finding the person that you're supposed to, there isn't probably the person you're supposed to be with, but finding a person where it would work out. Going to talk about that and kind of some things that you need to look for with that. So this is very much from an ISTP perspective, so I don't even know if this applies to everyone, but it seems to make sense to me, so maybe it makes sense in all cases, probably not, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So a big priority in your dating life should be that you're looking for your DIs to align. And I think that's pretty obvious for the most part. But I think sometimes the portions of your DI that you're looking to align are not the ones you really should be looking for. Or maybe you're missing some important steps. So for instance, I think with FIs, a lot of the things that they're looking for compatibility-wise is someone that has the same sort of likes and values that they do, which is important. And a lot of times an FI person will like another person for God knows why, right? Like they just like them a whole bunch and there's not necessarily a lot of logic behind it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes this can lead the FIs into getting in relationships where they're not really compatible or they're not really on the same path as that person, and it could end up not working out so much. So kind of the TIFE way of dating is you're kind of actually looking for your TI to align. So you're looking for, of course you want similar values and likes and dislikes, of course, but you're also looking to see if this relationship is going to work for both of you, right? So you have your TI, you have the way you want things to work, and you need to have their TI at least similar enough to where they want things to work the same way. And I think this gets skipped a lot by FIs. So not to attack FIs during this thing, this isn't the goal of here, this is just one thing I can point out. I'm sure the TIs are also ignoring likes and dislikes to their own detriment sometimes as well. So what does it mean to say that your TI aligns? Well, you got to look at what you want from a relationship. What works for you? So an example of that would be kids, right? That's a big one. Do you want kids? When do you want kids? Right? That should be a deal breaker, right? Depending on how bad you want that, right? If kids are really important to you, then you have no business dating someone who doesn't want to have kids, for instance. So even if you really FI like them, it ain't going to work out, right? Unless they're willing to bend and they're willing to, have kids with you or whatever, right? There's other things like, do you want to get married? Do you want to live in the same country, right? Is your religion a big deal, right? So that does seem like a value, and it kind of is. But your religion has a very impact on how things work for you, right? Do you need your partner to eat kosher? Do you need to go to church every Sunday? Do you need this? Do you need that? And so you really need to go deep within yourself and find these sort of deal breakers that you have as far as how things should logistically work, right? So for another instance, let's say you live in Poland and you meet someone in Poland, but you don't want to stay in Poland for the rest of your life. But the other person has other family there, they really love Poland, and they don't want to leave. That's like a TI deal breaker there, right? So you probably don't want to go too far into the dating process with this person. So it's really important that you nail down these sort of TI-related things will this relationship work for me, basically, right? Of course, values and likes and dislikes are also important. Like, for instance, having the same sense of humor, things like that. I feel like that gets addressed a lot, so I'm not going to go over that so much. I feel like the TI stuff gets skipped more so, but maybe I'm biased. So it's really important. Is this relationship going to work for you? Now, this is assuming that you want to. This whole video is just if you're looking to just go have fun, then this video isn't about that. Feel free to do that, but this one is talking about how to find a relationship that works for you. Okay, so that's one part of the coin here, right? So you need to make sure your TIs align, even if you don't have TI. You need to make sure things are going to work for both of you. All right, you might have your hard TI requirements. You need to make sure they're either going to be able to bend to those or to have something similar there, because otherwise these are just going to be deal breakers in the future, right? If you get with someone who doesn't want kids and you want kids, things are not going to last, so why get involved, right? If you want something to last anyway. The other side of it is chemistry, right? So TI, it has nothing to do with chemistry, right? You maybe some chemistry there that you share kind of the same ideas and the same way of going about things, sure. But chemistry I don't think is something really important to talk about, because if it's there or not, right? It's not something we need to analyze. TI stuff, you do need to analyze. You need to analyze your deal breakers. But chemistry, also, that's going to be a big factor. Like, why would you date someone you don't have any chemistry with? And I think that doesn't even need to be stated, right? So chemistry has to be there, and not really something I'm going to talk about because there's not really anything to analyze there, right? That should be obvious. Should be attracted to the person too, which I guess is also obvious, but I think some people feel like, to some degree, that's being shallow, right? That no, the attractiveness shouldn't matter. It should just be about the personality and who they are, and I shouldn't factor that in, or else I'm being shallow. Like, listen, we're humans, all right? We're monkeys, yeah? So, I mean, we're going to be driven by that at least a little bit, and it's okay to be driven by that, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting a partner where you look at them and you think, wow, they look great. Like, you know what I mean? That's totally fine. Now, that shouldn't be the only thing you go after, or you are going to get destroyed if you're just going after people you're attracted to. You're going to get in trouble with that, and I think that also goes without stating for the most part. Right? So, need to have the relationship work for both of you. Right? You need to find out those deal breakers, you need to have chemistry, and you need to be attracted to the person, at least physically, and then the chemistry is, I guess, also attraction, but more attraction to their personality, right? So I feel like these are kind of the three major things. There's a lot of stuff you can add to that. Well, that's super annoying. Yeah, so the screen froze. Yeah, don't ever use Photo Booth, by the way. That's what I'm using, and I'm realizing shortly this is bad. It just freezes for no reason. Wow, great. Good job, Apple. Anyway, so I'll just edit that. I don't feel like redoing it. I'll just edit it out. Maybe that'll be the improvement I make in the next video. I'll actually get like a good video recording thing. That'd be a good thing. Anyway, so what was I talking about? Three facets: making sure your TIs align, chemistry, attractiveness. Other things you can add to that, sure. But to me, in my narrow perspective, I feel like those are the three kind of big things, right? So you need to find someone like that, and that's going to take a long while. Or maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe the first person you go on a date with, they have all that. It's going to take a while. It took me like 100 people before I found my current girlfriend, right? To date. Yeah, it seems like a lot. It is a lot. But yeah, I'm picky, so. And we all should be picky, right? You're going to eventually spend, potentially the rest of your life with this person. You should be picky, I think, right? Maybe that's just me being a decider, but why the hell wouldn't you be picky? I don't know. For me, I'd rather be single than be with someone that it's not working out with. That's just me. So anyway, so there's a lot more to the actual specifics of dating. That probably should be something for another video. Just know that it is a numbers game. You're going to have to probably meet a lot of people, and don't settle for less. You will regret that decision later on down the road. I guarantee you, right? So yeah, don't be intimidated by dating. Well, you can't help if you're intimidated or not. It is the way, and, even if you have to go on 100 dates, finding that one person makes all of those dates totally worth it. Trust me, you'll forget about all that. And you'll have funny stories to go with it as well. So anyway, that's section 1, how to find so. I know this is really general. I don't even know if this is helpful. Leave me a comment if it's stupid or if it's not. Would love to hear from you. All right, section 2. So now we're talking about you've found the person where everything's lined up. So how do you keep the relationship going? So I think this is probably based on my type, but for me, there's one big core sort of thing for the relationship that's helping me out. And for that, it's preventing the buildup of resentment towards the other person. Right? Have you ever had that? You ever been in a relationship and like at some point you just slowly kind of just grew apart and then you were just done with each other? You never really got into fights necessarily. It was never really that bad. But eventually you're just like, I don't want to be in this anymore. There's underlying resentment there, I guarantee you, towards that other person. And there's underlying resentment because you never resolved the resentment. And these little resentments cut as little cuts, little tiny cuts throughout the relationship. Usually little, really trivial things that you don't want to say anything about to the other person. Those things build up over time, right? It could be as simple as them, as maybe they don't text you back for a whole day, and they usually don't do that, and they never mentioned it or apologized for it, but you didn't want to say anything because you don't want to be that person like, I don't want to control them if you're OE, or I don't want to, feel like I'm petty, or I'm just complaining about, I don't want to be dramatic. That's another big one. I don't want to be dramatic. No, be dramatic. Well, don't be dramatic, but bring things up. Because those little incidents, even on their own, are super trivial. They build up over time, and they increase your resentment for the other person. So the core concept is preventing this resentment from happening by actually communicating when you've been hurt or when you didn't like something. So this does two things. So for one, it reduces that resentment that builds up and eventually separates you both. And the second thing is it actually builds trust and actually builds connection when you actually do tell your significant other what's bothering you, which, at least for me, that was a discovery. Maybe for like you SCFEs out there, maybe you're like, well, duh, of course it does. But it actually will build and strengthen your relationship. Because think of it this way. If something bothered or hurt me, which is really hard, demon FE, it's so hard to tell somebody that, right? Especially feminine FE, super difficult. But if I go and I tell them, they receive it well, and they either apologize or maybe they explain why they did it, and then they acknowledge that I was hurt by it and everything went okay, that's going to make me trust that person so much more than I did before, and that's going to strengthen our connection so much because I know that when I'm hurt, for one, that they care, and two, that I can be honest with them about it and have them receive it well, right? Because you were vulnerable with that person when you told them that, and they accepted your vulnerability, they handled it well, and now your relationship just increased by a level. And you don't have this stupid resentment building up over time. So to me, that is the core of building a relationship, is actually handling conflict. If you have a conflict-free relationship, that's not good. Because you'll never get that deep without conflict. You have to have that conflict to be able to express that vulnerability, have it be accepted, and have you strengthen over time, to really become one sort of solid team, because you both know that you can trust each other, you can completely be yourself around the other person, and that other person cares and acknowledges you. So that's huge. So I would say section 2, the whole thing. There's more to it than that. But for me, this has been the core principle of building a relationship is saying when I'm upset, or saying when I'm hurt about stuff, or saying when something bothered me, even if I feel like it's trivial, because I'm almost always going to think it's trivial. Now, obviously, if somebody cheats on me, that's not a trivial thing, and that'll be a whole different deal. But we're talking about the little things, because the little things are the really the important things, Obviously, if there's something horrible that happens, then you're going to eventually speak about it at some point and resolve it, hopefully resolve it. Now, so this is the core thing to building a relationship, is expressing this hurt, but there is a specific way you have to go about it too, right? So if you get hurt by something, do not attack the other person. That is not going to go well. They're probably not likely to apologize. It's going to result in more conflict, and that's not going to be good. And then you being vulnerable with them has been punched in the face, and you're not likely to be vulnerable with them again, right? Or at least not as much. So there's a way that you do it, right? So let's say the example, the person didn't text me back for a day or whatever. The way I would communicate that is not that they should have done that. How dare they? The way I should communicate was that, like, this is what happened, and this is how it made me feel. Oh, stupid screensaver. Sorry. This video is so full of fuck ups. I hope they're at least funny. It's funny for you as they are for me. So anyway, what the hell was I talking about? Okay, yeah, the example, right. Okay, so let's say they didn't text me back for a day, and I was hurt by that. And I decided to be vulnerable, and I decided to tell them that, like, hey, the way that you do it is this way. So you state what happened. Now, you don't paint them as the offender or yourself as a victim. Don't do any of that shit. Say, here's what happened. Here's how it made me feel. And then indicate that I'm not attacking you. I might not even be telling you to change necessarily. I just want to tell you how this affected me. All right, so this doesn't put the other person on the defensive, which is good, because then they'll be able to receive that better and maybe apologize and maybe, receive it well. And it also resolves that resentment, because I let it out there. You got to let that emotional energy come out somehow. If you keep it to yourself, it's going to stay there, and it's going to come out at some other time when it's probably not a good time for that to come out, right? All right, and then it's up for the other person to either apologize or at least give me some kind of feedback, to help me out there. So if you're the other person, you need to receive it in a certain, like, you need to respond back in a way that's helpful. You need to respond back in a way that shows that you care, that you're going to take responsibility for that, and then offer an explanation. But do that in a certain order. Don't offer the explanation first, because that's going to come off defensive, right? So if I say, yeah, you didn't text me, it made me feel this way. Oh, well, I was busy that day and I didn't blah, blah, blah. That doesn't feel like that you care or that you're accepting what I'm saying. So if you say more like, I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, I completely understand how that would make you feel the way that you felt. I'll make sure that I'm more careful about that. I'm really sorry. What happened was, I was busy that day and something happened at work, and then my mind was on that. And then I just wasn't around my phone at all. So yeah, so I apologize for that. I'm going to, be better about that in the future. That's how you receive it, right? It shows that you care. You're not getting defensive. You're not telling the other person they shouldn't feel that way. However way you feel, it's always okay. However you feel, the feelings are always okay. There's never like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or you can't help how you feel. You feel the way you feel. Now, how you act on that could be either good or bad, but the feeling itself it's always okay to feel however you feel, and you always need to acknowledge that, and you need to state that to your partner. But it doesn't necessarily mean if you feel a certain way, if you feel negative, that it's their fault or whatever. So don't play the blame game. Don't attack somebody. You say, hey, this is how it made me feel. Maybe it's not rational, but I just need to express this to you so that things are okay. Okay. So to me, that's the main builder of a relationship, getting into conflict and then resolving it like that, because that builds trust. It makes you more comfortable feeling vulnerable, and it reduces resentment in the relationship, which is the big, in my opinion, big relationship killer. Yeah. The video is not stopping. Okay, so for the last section, we're going to talk about the OP math, relationship math. So if you're not aware, maybe you're not even aware of OP, that's fine. So Dave and Shan, so the people that made the OP system, had a video on compatibility in relationships, and they kind of talked about which types are compatible and sort of how that works. So the basis of that was this. So the types that are the most compatible are the types that have, for one, opposite modalities, so opposite masculine and feminine energy. So if you're masculine sensory, you're going to go better with feminine sensory. If you're masculine DE, you're going to at least be more attracted to feminine DE. And then with your functions, you should ideally have the same function set. So you should be in the same, what's called a quadra. So for me, I'm an ISTP. It would be INFJ, ESTP, or ENFJ, right? We all share the same functions. Because this allows you to have easy communication, right? Because with you communicate with your functions, and you have your own programming and stuff like that, and somebody has the same programming. It's going to be very easy for you to understand each other. And then the last bit is having opposite animals. So consume sleeps are going to go with blast plays, things like that. I think that's also more of an attraction thing. You tend to be attracted to people with your opposite animals. You tend to envy that a little bit. And then with the sexuals, I don't know we call them the sexuals. The modality is the same thing, right? So the audios are going to be more attracted to visuals. Testers are going to be more attracted to the kinesthetic types, right? Okay, so that's the EOP math. So I think that idea has gotten a lot of flack, because I feel like people took it as that Dave and Shan were kind of saying that you have to be these compatible types for it to work out, but I don't think that they were saying that necessarily. Or maybe I misinterpreted it, but I don't think they were necessarily saying that. I think it was coming more from a place that it's going to be easier to have a relationship when you kind of meet these criteria. So like, for instance, for me, so I'm ISTP, so I'm MF, TISE, consume, play, sleep, blast. So the ideal OP math one would be FM, so visual, NIFE, INFJ, blast, sleep, play, consume, something like that. All right, so anyway, so I think what they were saying is it's definitely going to be easier to build a relationship that way. And it makes sense, like just from a logical perspective, right? If you're communicating with the same function, it's going to be easier to understand each other. If you have, opposite animals and modalities, you're going to be more attracted to each other. But I don't think they were saying it's the be all, the end to the be into the all. Well, what's that phrase? Anyway, so I don't think it's the bee's knees. That's also a stupid phrase. I don't think it's all there is. Okay, let me just say that. I think it's helpful, sure, but I think there are plenty of like opposite examples we can find where people have either been the exact same type or types that are completely incompatible, and it's worked out great. Wait one sec. So I think like the OP math and the compatibility amongst the types, I think that really helps in the beginning, but it's not going to sustain your relationship, right? That's going to help with finding someone that you're compatible with and blah, 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 but it has nothing to do with whether the relationship lasts or not. And I think it's more important when people tend to be sort of unhealthy types, or types that haven't really worked on their other functions as well. You know what I mean? So like, for instance, if you have two types that are in the same quadrant and they fit this OP math, you're going to have this easy communication. You're going to have the attraction there. You're also, even though you have the same functions, you're not going to project sort of the things that you hated on yourself on the other person. Like, for instance, if it's two ISTPs together, as an ISTP, you might have some qualities about yourself that you don't really care for. For instance, sometimes you're a bit of a know-it-all. And if you date someone who also is lead TI and they happen to also be a bit of a know-all, you're really going to hate that quality about them because you also don't like it in yourself. So if you reverse that and they're not an ISTP and they're an INFJ, then they still have the same functions as you, but they're not doing the know-it-all thing. So you're not projecting that on them, right? So this really helps when it's really important if you have two people that are just not very developed, right? Because these functions are kind of helping them to work these things out. You're not running into a lot of the pitfalls that you would have if you are an incompatible type. But the thing is, if you have two people that are healthy and developed people, the type really doesn't matter, like, at all. Right? Think about this. So I'll use me as an example because it's easiest. ISTP. The most incompatible, I would say, is probably an ENFP and an ISTP. Don't get me wrong. I love ENFPs. One of my best friends is an ENFP. But like romantically, it's going to be tough because you're really going to miss each other a lot. You're really not going to understand what's going on. Right? They have the mostly because of the decider axis, them having FI. I'm assuming they're operating on TI, but they're not. They're operating on FI, and I'm assuming they want to share FE. No, they want to share TE. And so you're really going to misunderstand each other, and you're going to misattribute things to them. You're going to misattribute their intentions. You're going to be able to completely see where they're coming from, at least in the beginning. But if you have a really healthy ISTP and you have a really healthy ENFP, you're going to realize that the other person is speaking a different language than you, or they're from a different world. And as a healthy person, you're not going to take offense to that, and you're not going to read into the things that they do and say too harshly, right? You're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and try to understand what their perspective is as a healthy, developed individual. So these two types can work out great if you're willing to see the world from their eyes and you're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt most of the time, and they're willing to do that for you. And then really this ends up being a great couple, because if you think about it, if you are able to kind of navigate that sort of having basically coming from two different planets, it actually makes things really interesting, because you'll never really completely get the other person, and the other person's always going to surprise you in some way. And so the other person becomes infinitely interesting, right? So really these types can be really great together for certain reasons, right? So I think compatibility depends way more on how developed and mature you are as a person. Being type compatible certainly helps in the beginning and makes it easier if you still got some work to do, which we all do, But yeah, I don't think it's the be and I was trying to say that phrase, be all end all. Oh, is that it? Be all. That still doesn't sound right. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought again. Okay, so another example, right? SE, full of examples. So let's say you have two people that are lead TI. Actually, this can work out really well. Even though I mentioned another example where you project stuff onto the other person, you don't like this quality because you don't like it in yourself, et cetera, et cetera. Actually can work really well, and I have experience with this, so I know. But you actually, it makes it to where you really understand each other at a deep level very, very easily. Someone else's lead TI, I know what's going on with them. I know what they expect from me. I know what their needs are. And I know how they would be in different... I can easily simulate where they're at in my mind because I just have to simulate me for most of the time because my needs and wants are going to probably be pretty similar to them. Not the exact same. But it's going to be... So I don't have to do a lot of guessing there. And that makes it a lot easier for these two types to get along. Now, of course, you have the projection thing, and there's going to be stuff you don't like about yourself that they might have as well. But if you're two mature, developed people, it doesn't really matter so much, right? Because you've either gotten over those or at least gotten to where they don't offend you so much. Right? So, in short, the OP math is nice and it does help, but it's not the most important thing. I think it's more important about, you know, how developed you are as a person. Can you communicate? There's my screensaver again. Oh my God, this video is a mess. Yeah, can you communicate? Can you be vulnerable with the other person? Et cetera, et cetera. That is way more important than OP math. But OP math does help, sure. Okay, I think that's all I got. Yeah, I hope this made sense. I hope it was useful. Would love to hear your comments on it, even if you have some criticisms. Definitely open to that. I know this isn't the perfect theory, but maybe there's some bits out of it you can take with you, and maybe you can shed some light on certain things. So, yeah, have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. What is with this thing? Why hasn't it stopped yet?